good, man.
So welcome
to the Send Me podcast, man. We got Rudy Ortiz here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Gilbert. I appreciate it, man.
For sure, man.
Sorry I was a little bit late, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, I literally was sitting there and I was like, I know that there's something I got to do. And then my alarm went off on my phone. I was like, oh, shit, that's right. I got to be in Tracy. I was like, what the fuck am I thinking? So I'm glad, but I'm glad you waited for me, though, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, better late than never, brother. I appreciate you coming out, man. And I know you take time out of your busy schedule. You're a busy man. So I appreciate you being here. Basically, I just want to talk about kind of like you. And tell me your story, man. What was it like growing up for you?
Well, I'm from San Leandro. I grew up in like a fairly like what I would consider just, normal, maybe even average like atmosphere. I had my parents at the house. They've been together for like 40 plus years, like 42 years now, I want to say 42, 43 years. I was the oldest sibling. I got a younger sister. It's just me and my sister and my parents. And, we grew up in a pretty like peaceful, pretty laid back, like, middle class for sure. Like middle class, atmosphere, man, household, we used to have dinner together like at 5 o'clock. We used to, we went to Disneyland a couple of times when I was a kid. Yeah, man, it was a pretty peaceful. I don't want to call it normal or average. It was just a very peaceful atmosphere for me. And I was extremely lucky. Like the older I get, I realize like how beneficial that was for me and my sister in the long run. So yeah, peaceful is definitely the way I could describe my youth and my childhood.
Yeah, I would definitely say that most of the people I talk to don't have dad in the picture. It kind of changes the whole dynamic of everything,
It's true, man. I didn't live it, but there's just so many instances that show how true that is. Like the data backs it up. You know what I mean? Like they've done all these studies. The father's role in the house is just so big, and it really brings like an element of discipline. It keeps everybody in order, and you need that, right? Because you're gonna grow up. You're going to grow up and participate in society. And if you don't even know how to like take some, or if you don't know how to cooperate in your household, that's going to reflect on how you're going to cooperate with the rest of the world, because your household is the first society that you're a part of. Yeah, that's the first example of society. That's where you learn hierarchy. That's where you learn rules. That's where you learn, like how to position yourself so that you can be helpful, and what happens when you don't do that, how you disrupt the society. You know what I mean? Like the household is the training ground for how you're going to be a citizen of the world.
Yeah, 100%, man. I agree with that completely. What's your background?
I'm Mexican, so my parents both of them are from Mexico. My dad's from a place called Colotlan, Jalisco. Okay. And my mom's from Hermosillo, Sonora. But they didn't meet in Mexico. They met in East Oakland at St. Liz Church on a Sunday. So,
right. Yeah. So was it a strict Mexican household, or was it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, when I hear people say strict, I get the feeling that sometimes it's a little bit embellished. Like if my household we had rules and stuff, but I wouldn't call it strict, man. I mean, like. I had to do stuff like be home at a certain time, but my parents I could always go out and play. Like it was never like, a problem to go outside and kick it. But, we had a pretty, my mom and dad ran a tight ship. We definitely weren't going to get out of line, like on a disrespectful, blatant level. Like that was not going to happen. But, me and my sister, we got away with stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're kids, you know what I'm saying? You're always going to find a little loophole. Yep. You're always going to figure out a way to kind of like trick your parents, or at least not let them know what's going on so you can get away with shit. So, yeah. But they definitely kept order in the household, and we weren't going to get away with no bullshit, with no disruptive shit. But, every now and then you could fool the guards every now and then,
How many siblings?
Just one, just my sister, my younger sister. She's about 3 years younger than me, 3 to 4 years younger than me. Okay. It was just me and her the whole time, man. So
was dad a little more strict with sister?
Here's the thing, man. Like my parents, I think they treated us both the same in terms of what we could and couldn't do. But obviously, as a boy, you have inclinations to want to do certain things that maybe your sister, she's not inclined to do. You know what I mean? Like boys seem to be more. They want to be out more. They want to get out the house. They want to be out and about with their friends, riding bikes and stuff like that. Girls, from what I've seen in my life, it feels more like girls are more, they're more okay with, you know, not being so adventurous. So naturally they stay behind a little bit more. They stay at the house a little bit more. But my parents would never had to tell my sister, like, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, like that never happened. Now, maybe that has a lot to do with my sister's personality. Maybe she just wasn't the type that was going to be like 15 years old, wilding out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I never really had to see my parents take it to that level. Cause, you know, like I said, man, we had a lot of like respect and order implemented into us when we were younger.
Yeah.
So we didn't really find the desire to lash out and do anything crazy, you know? So luckily, I think when I look back on it now, like I think we had my parents and us, me and my sister, we had a good dynamic because we never had to really push each other to that point where it was like, I'm going to break you right now if you just take one more step. Like neither one of us really had to do that, you know?
Yep. I got it.
But there was definitely some things that I'm certain that if we wanted to, if we pushed it, there was definitely some stuff that I'm sure I could have got away with that my sister could not have, like being out to like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
For the most part, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. You don't want your daughter out at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I feel like that translates to any background.
Anybody, right? Brother. That goes for anybody.
Yeah. So school, what was that like? Were you a class clown or?
I was definitely the class clown. That's for sure, man. Like I really, you know, I was a ham, you know what I mean? I've always kind of been a ham, especially when I'm like in a setting where like I'm getting encouraged. I'm like, oh yeah, let's keep going. Everybody's having a good time. Let's get crazy. Right. So I was definitely the class clown, but I would say I was a class clown, but I wasn't, you know, I don't consider myself a clown. But even clowns do have like their serious side. So, I mean, I guess we're all kind of clowns in a way, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody's got that, you know, that funny side, that fun, you know, like let's get goofy every now and then. But also that same person could also turn around and just have a deep ass conversation with you, you know, about some real shit that they've been thinking about. But yeah, definitely, bro. Like I got voted class clown in high school.
Yeah.
I was always into like, you know, being in the middle of some shit. You know what I mean? I like conversation. I like going back and forth, whether it's like humorous or a little more intellectual. Like I enjoy exchange. I like people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm not one of those folks that, you know, wants to detach myself from society. I'm the opposite. I like to be involved. I like to talk to people. I like to meet strangers. You know, I'm into big talk. I'm down for small talk. We can do it if we have to, but I'm really into big talk.
Yeah.
I like meeting a motherfucker and finding out what his dreams and aspirations are.
Yeah.
Like before we part ways, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
that definitely, like having that attitude definitely fed into this idea of being a class clown because it was my way of interacting with people, you know what I'm saying? And I like people. I like to see them smile. So it definitely all added up to being the funny guy, you know?
I imagine what you do. I mean, you're a comedian now, right?
Yeah.
So
stand-up comic.
Just the thought of you wanting to get those laughs at a young age, that it makes sense, right?
Right.
That you ended up doing what you're doing.
Right.
You're doing what you love to do. So
yeah. And it's funny though. I want to point this out though because I just feel like sometimes like there's a level of validation. There is a level of validation in like making people laugh. I admit that. You know what I'm saying? You kind of feel like, yeah, man, like look how clever I am. Look how cute I am. You know what I'm saying? Like I did that. I tickled your funny bone, right? There's a level of that. But then also I also think that sometimes we make people laugh because we just want to feel close to somebody. And sharing a laugh with somebody is a very intimate thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So there's definitely that element of it too. Like I said at the beginning, I just like people. And I just think that when you make somebody smile or you crack a joke and you guys are laughing, you ever just laugh with somebody in a hearty ass way? Like both you guys are just sharing that moment where it's like, damn, like whatever was said was fucking hilarious. There's like a level of intimacy there, even between strangers. There's like a level of closeness that you're having with somebody that you might never share with somebody else, you know? So that's also another reason why I was pulled into the comedy world, because I do enjoy that moment, that sharing that moment with somebody.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just even myself, I can imagine thinking of my past and things that stand out. It's always those funny, crazy movies, you know, when like late at night when you're kind of like hilarious.
Yeah.
Everything's hilarious and you're hysterical.
Yes,
and
bro.
it doesn't matter what you say. It's just funny and you were laughing as kids. And I did that with my siblings a lot.
And you tell that story to somebody else and it's never as funny as if when you're sharing the story with that person again.
Yeah,
hey, remember that one time we fucking black? And then you just start cracking up. You don't even finish the story.
Yeah.
You just start dying.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that what kind of catapulted you to say, okay, this is kind of the path that I want to go, or did it take a little bit of time to realize that this is what you wanted to do?
Man, I always wanted to be in a world where you could talk to people and you could and the end result would be, you know, laughter or just feeling good. You know what I mean? Like that I always gravitated towards that. Even as a kid, I always thought about being like a comedic actor or a stand-up comic, even as a kid. But then as I got older, I started realizing that it's really like the people business that I enjoy. You know what I'm saying? Like I enjoy doing podcasts because I get to chop it up with somebody. I get to interact with somebody. I enjoy doing stand-up comedy for the same reason, you know, because I get a chance to like lay out thoughts and share ideas and, you know, just kind of like well, you're not really sharing ideas because when you're doing stand-up, you're up there by yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you got a heckler that they got to give their opinion too. Then so I guess now we going back and forth. But I enjoy that. That's the part that really moves me though. You know what I'm saying? Is just like you know, being able to express your thoughts and having a response and having a back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's telling jokes or whether it's just chopping it up with somebody.
Yeah.
That's the part that moves me.
I think what explains a lot to me was, you know, I'm a big fan of your podcast that you had. I don't know if you're still actively doing.
We're taking a little hiatus. We're taking a little hiatus right now.
Doing comedy, so I would imagine it's tough to do all of that at one time. But tell us about that. Tragic. What does that stand for?
So I started a podcast about 2 years ago. I called it the Tragic Podcast. I came up with this acronym one time. I was living in Newark, and this was years ago. This is before I even really got into stand-up comedy heavily. I was just going to open mics. So I'm talking about like my mid-20s.
Okay.
I'm sitting there in my apartment, and I'm high as shit. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't like my job. I'm coming home from work, and I'm sitting there in my little lonely ass apartment. I'm smoking all this weed, and I'm just trying to cope, you know, with like, fuck, I'm not feeling my life right now, you know?
Yeah.
And I just started doing this thing where I started writing a bunch of acronyms or creating a bunch of acronyms. I would take words. This is weed thinking, right? I would take words and then I would look at the letters in the words and see if I can come up with an acronym that was related to that word.
Yeah.
And I remember the first one that I came up with was WISH.
Okay.
WISH. Why isn't shit happening? You know what I'm saying? And then when I came up with,
brain was at.
Yeah, that's where my brain. That's where my head was at. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how it started off. So when I wrote that, I thought that was kind of fun. So you know what I'm saying? I'm like, fuck it, man. I'm just gonna make a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I came up with one for tragic, and I started thinking. I was like, what is a tragedy? You know, what is a tragedy, and how do we deal with them? You know, usually we make it a taboo topic. We make it something that we don't really touch on. We don't really bring it up. Or if you bring it up, you got to bring it up with like a deep respect. You know, you can't go out of the boundaries for talking about a tragedy. You have to always like maintain a certain level of respect, you know, because people were hurt. People are still hurt by it. And then, you know, I started thinking about like, damn, like the human condition, you know, doesn't allow for us to what it allows for, the human condition, what it allows for is for us to deal with sad shit and then figure out a way, try to find a way to get over it and get past it. And I always felt that when people say that comedy is medicine or laughter is medicine, I think that's absolutely true because you have to laugh at things in general. You have to laugh at things in order to deal with them, in order to deal with the reality of them, right? So a tragedy is considered like the worst thing that can happen to you. So if the remedy for dealing with hardships is to laugh at it, why shouldn't you laugh at a tragedy? Why shouldn't at some point you have to get to that next level where it's like, all right, I'm done being hurt. Now it's time to heal. And I think that the human mind does that naturally.
Yeah.
You know, because the human mind doesn't want to self-implode. Like the human spirit doesn't want to fall apart. So at some point, you're going to reach the level of, I just got to laugh at it. Not even because it's funny. Because it's like, bro, like I got to survive. Yeah. I don't want to self-implode. I don't want to, just completely fall apart. I got to survive. So that's what you do. Your body says, fuck it. I'm going to look at it in a funny fashion now. That terrible thing that happened, there's got to be some levity to it in order for me to survive. So the acronym is time renders all great injustice comical. If you give something enough time, and if you're willing to look at it from a different, perspective, after you've gone through all the other emotions, the pain, the resentment, the sadness, the depression. After you've gone through all that, you only got one thing left to do, man, and that's to laugh at it. So I started bringing people onto the podcast that had crazy, fucked up shit that happened to them in their life, and I want to hear how they got through it. I want to hear if they can laugh about it now. And I want to hear their perspective on something tragic that happened to them, something terrible that happened to them. But after you've given it time and after you've dealt with it in every way possible, now I want to hear what you got to say about it now.
One thing that stands out to me when you say that, everybody's had a tragedy in their life, right? Everybody's had somebody, a loved one, pass away. Everybody's had something that's happened to them that's been tragic. And one of your guests that you had on, I was watching your podcast, and one of your guests, I think he was a comedian, I believe, had a car accident, lost a finger.
Right. Shout out Rick James, my boy Rick James.
Okay, yeah. So I thought it was a very interesting podcast, but he could laugh about it now, right?
Yeah.
That crazy situation, somebody becomes an amputee. In a serious portion, you look at it like this person's an amputee. He's dealing with that,
and he was hurt. He was hurt way more than just that finger.
No, I know.
That finger was the least
of
it.
it. Yeah, and you called him a Ninja Turtle,
right?
And I just died laughing, like thinking about it, right? Because he's laughing, you're laughing, and it's like exactly what you said, man.
Yeah.
You took that tragic moment in his life, and now you guys are able to laugh about it.
Yeah,
and that's the whole thing. Time renders everything comical.
Yeah,
right?
all great injustice, because really that there's so many different types of injustices, right? There's the injustice of the law, but there's also the injustice of the heart, injustice of the mind. The world is just waiting, to betray you at some corner.
Yeah.
And you can't spend your entire life lamenting over the betrayals that you've experienced, over the disappointments and the failures that you've encountered, whether they're self-inflicted or they were just bestowed upon you. You can't spend your entire life lamenting on them and then expect to actually remain alive. You might still be breathing and walking around, but you're dead on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's like the human condition doesn't want that.
Yeah.
So it pushes and finds, it goes through all the checklist of shit that you got to feel to process through that tragedy, through that sadness. And I really do believe that if you give it enough time, the one that you least expect, the laughing at it, that one will appear too in your, like, on your list of things to do. It will become something that you can laugh at, because if you don't do that, you're going to just fall apart on the inside. And
yeah,
nature doesn't want us to do that.
You and I talked about this on the phone prior to you coming in. Comedy is one of the things that I'm a big fan of. Right?
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan. I think you guys kind of get the shit end of the stick sometimes. You got people who get offended easily by things, and I'm of the belief that comics should have a pass to talk about anything that they want to talk about.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of a comedian, right? Is to make you laugh about things that you normally wouldn't laugh about, right? In my field, I'm a law enforcement officer, right? So in law enforcement, we come to scenes that are horrible,
right,
horrific. Most people in their life will never see what we have seen, right? And at the end of the day, we have to find, like you said, levity in that situation. We somehow, some way, if you tell anybody else about it, they look at it and go, well, you have no heart?
Right.
What's wrong
Exactly.
with you? But that's not what we're doing, right? We're doing this because we need, like you said, to survive. It's our surviving mechanism, our coping mechanism, right? So I think that it's an amazing acronym, man. I think that it's 100% true. I think everything at some point, time is going to push it far enough to where you can say, okay, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm gonna move on with my life, and I'm gonna make this tragedy that I had comical.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you share that sentiment, man, because it's so important for people to remember that when you hear somebody joking about something terrible that happened, they're coping with it in a healthy way. People tend to jump to conclusions and be like, hey, that's fucked up. You can't talk about that. That's fucked up. That's not cool. Now, look, I'm not saying that as soon as the fucking body turns cold, like you can start cracking jokes, you give it a little time. It's okay to give it a little time. But let's say even if you didn't give it any time, if laughter is the way that you're coping with it, you got to let people go through those emotions. You got to let them, you got to let them express themselves, but it usually doesn't happen where it's like laughter is the very first thing. Laughter eventually comes along and people start poking fun at things, but that's them coping in a healthy way. It's not disrespectful. And also, like, who are we to tell somebody else how to cope with shit anyways?
Yeah, 100%.
People grieve differently. You know what I'm saying? And so don't shortchange humor and laughter as something that's disrespectful. No, man, it's actually a great coping mechanism, and we all use it. It lands on our doorstep So every single person in the world has to go through that at some point. You got to laugh at shit. Otherwise, you're not going to make it.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Now, that brings me kind of to a question. What are your thoughts on the, like cancel culture for you guys?
Yeah, I've given this. I think a lot of comics have given it a lot of thought because you're kind of forced to think about it, because like it's been such a prevalent conversation. It's come up so many times. But to be honest with you, man, I don't really concern myself with cancel culture anymore because to me it's like an empty attempt at doing something that can never really be accomplished, and that is to like restrain and compartmentalize what should and shouldn't be funny. You can never do that because there's one thing about humor and one thing about things that are funny. There's nothing more funny than seeing somebody bothered.
Yeah.
That's so the more you try to tell people what they should and shouldn't talk about, all you're really doing is breeding more energy to talk about it. And so all art is subversive. The best art is subversive. So if you don't like it, that gives me more energy to want to like kind of throw it in your face, because it's like when you're on the school bus, that one kid who got a fucked up haircut, when they start roasting them, it's funny. But what makes it really funny is when it fucking bothers him.
Yeah.
If he was cool about it, he was like, man, fuck you. I mean, my shit's still cleaner than your shit. Like if he had a cool comeback, then that kind of lowers the energy to laugh at it.
People stop.
They stop. They're like, oh, it's not even funny no more, man. It's like, he's not even bothered by it.
100%.
But when that kid when he starts getting mad and he starts stomping around, he starts throwing his back, like, fuck you, man. Fuck, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So you will never be able to extinguish that natural feeling. So when I see people trying to get comics to restrain themselves and trying to say you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, to me it's hilarious, because the thing that they're adding more fuel to the fire, the thing that they want to extinguish, they're actually making it stronger. Yeah. Because now you're telling people like, oh, you don't want me to talk about that? Oh, well, guess what? I'm going to continue to talk about that until the pendulum swings and people start looking at how, how boring life is if you got people telling you what you should and you shouldn't talk about. Yeah. So when it comes to cancel culture, bro, like it's gonna kill itself. I mean, it never really had any legs to stand on, anyways.
I'll be honest, I think it's already killing itself.
It is, and it's been a quick death. It's not like it's been around because really, how prevalent has this notion of cancel culture really been in modern day society? I'd say maybe like about 6 or 7 years. As a guy in the comedy world, like that term cancel culture, I didn't even hear that when I first started doing comedy. Yeah, it's been prevalent recently, and you're right, it's killing itself now.
Yeah, I'm watching it as you're talking right now. It kind of hit me that the comedians that I watch, a lot of them that I watch and that I'm a fan of, they're mentioning more crazier shit as the cancel culture became a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing it. I'm like, this cancel culture is not going to last long.
Can't last, bro.
It's just a word now,
right?
Or a couple words now. It's not making a dent in what you guys are doing,
dude. And it's also we live in a ticker, like like a trending society. We live in a world where everything is trending. So even your causes become old shit really fast, like a noble cause. You forget about that shit in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things, how many like ribbons have we put up, and how many, movements have happened like just in the last 5 years. Yeah. And social media plays a huge role in that, because social media kind of conditions the way that we think on a day-to-day basis. So that conditions the way that we talk and the things that we talk about to one another. Yeah. So when you see that it's dying down on your timeline, there's a very good chance that it's going to start dying down in your real life too. Yeah. Because you're just not going to be, it's not going to be at the front of your mind anymore. That's a good thing and a bad thing, because sometimes really good ideas die for no reason, and sometimes really shitty ideas, they live for no reason. Yeah.
No,
so
that makes sense.
Watch your timeline, bro. Your algorithm is controlling our fucking soul at this point, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of answered my question already, but is there, as a comedian, do you feel like there's any jokes that are off limits for you?
No, man. Look, nothing is off limits, because there's really no limit. Like there's nobody telling you what you can and can't talk about. But here's the thing, though, bro. It better be funny. Whatever you say better be funny, because you're not going to be chastised and demonized for telling a bad joke about a touchy topic. You're going to be demonized for telling a bad joke. Yeah. It better be fun. Whatever you say, dog, everything is open to joke about. Literally every fucking thing. Everything. Yeah. But you better be funny about it, because if you roll the dice and it's no good, your credibility as a comic is gonna suffer. And if you're a real comic, that's all you don't want to look like. You don't want to look like you're not doing your job well, you know. So that's what you think about. You know, you consider that. But in terms of like things that are and aren't off topic, like, you know, there's no rules to this, dog. And that's why most of us got into it. You know, I got into comedy because I want to do and say reckless shit.
Yeah.
I didn't get into comedy for rules and regulations. If I would have done that, if I wanted that, I would have kept my desk job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So no, there's no limit. Nothing is off limits, man.
So how do you know things are funny as a comedian when you're doing a joke and you're like, ah, man, if I say this can go one of two ways, and how do you figure that out? What's your process of doing that?
I mean, look, man, if you have a first of all, I think if you really want to be funny, and maybe there's like some risky shit you got to say. Well, let me back it up. Number one, like you gotta believe that you're coming from a sincere, funny place.
Yeah.
Like you have to. If you're coming from a malicious place, people will be able to tell. If you're coming from trying to crack a joke, people will be able to tell. Even those who think you're not funny will know. They'll be more upset at you, not because of what you said. They won't take it literally. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. Like that's so offensive. Most of the time they'll look at you like, oh, man, shut the fuck up. That's such a bad joke, because you didn't do a good job of delivering the joke for whatever reason, right? So you gotta actually come from a sincere. I'm coming from a place where I'm trying to be funny. I'm trying to crack a joke. I'm not being malicious at all. So that's number one. Number two, man, you know, I really think that you have to have like some conviction in what you're saying. You got to really mean it. You got to really lean into it and sell it. Like, hey man, if you're gonna crack a joke about about your dead grandma, you better fucking lean into it, bro. Don't half step that shit. Yeah. Because people could tell when you're when you're not fully committed to the bit, as they say, right? They can tell, and people don't like that shit. You know, it's like a dog could smell your fear. The crowd or the people that you're talking to, they can smell when you're not really committed to it. So you got to come from a sincerely humorous place. You're trying to be funny. That's got to be number one. And then number two is like, you got to have conviction, man. If you're going to fucking tell a joke, you better tell that motherfucker all the way. Don't half step that shit. And then it's up to the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
To decide if it's funny or not.
Depends on the crowd, right?
Right.
I mean,
but as a comic, you're trying to, it's like Patrice O'Neal said in a podcast one time, he was like, all good jokes and bad jokes, they all come from the same like birth canal. Yeah. Just some are good and some are bad, but everybody's trying to be funny. Yeah. They're trying to make you laugh. They're trying to bring some levity. Yeah. But some are shitty and some are really good, but they all come from the same place. So, yeah, it's R.I.P. to one of the goats, man. I mean, I grew up on this shit, so I really, you know, I enjoy his stuff. But yeah, man. I mean, you're attempting to be funny, dog. Yeah. You're attempting. This is all like some daredevil shit.
You ever practice in front of family, friends, or anything like that? Or do you just take it and try to hit smaller clubs and see how it works?
I mean, typically what you do is like, if I practice in front of my friends and my family, they probably wouldn't be my friends and my family anymore. They'd be like, man, don't invite this motherfucker. He's always trying to run material on us. It's like, dog, it's a baby shower. Can you just chill? But I mean, obviously you do go to open mics though, and that's what those are for. You go to open mics because you got some new ideas. You want to see if it's going to be any good or not, you know, what the general reception of the joke is. So you just hit up those open mics. It's not a club. It's not like a showcase. It's like a bunch of comics just fucking standing in line, waiting to do their 3 or 4 minutes and just see what works and what doesn't. And then you just keep on building on top of that joke until you feel like it's some good shit and you could use it for like a bigger show or a better show, whatever that may be.
So I'm going to rewind you a little bit, man. What was it that got you to say, okay, I'm going to go and stand in front of some fucking crowd of people that I've never seen before in my life and try to tell some jokes and make them laugh? Yeah. What was that day that you said, okay, I'm going to do it?
Man, so I think, you know, well, okay, so the day that it actually happened, I do remember this because I was maybe like about 24. And I remember I was recording some, because I'm from the Bay Area. I'm a guy from the Bay Area, and I don't know if you know this, but every male in the Bay Area at some point has to be a rapper. Like that just comes with the fucking birth certificate, you know. So I had a nice little setup in my parents' garage, and I had my homies there. We would be there. We'd be rapping, and my producer. I was in the booth and my producer was and by my producer I mean just the guy who hits the space button, like he's the producer, right? So I was in the booth and I was smoking and I was rapping and I was like, man, this is so cool. Like I'm out here like living my dreams, right? And I I started talking shit to somebody who walked into the studio, or the garage, and my producer taps in and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "you should go to Tommy T's, bro." He was like, "You talking hella shit, you hella funny right now." And I'm like, yeah. And so I finished doing what I was doing, and then I was sitting and I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I will give it a try. Like, I always had this love and this affinity for stand-up comedy, but I just never really, tried it, to be honest with you. I watched it, I listened to a lot of it, but I never really tried it. So when my buddy said that, just something clicked in my mind, and immediately, like, the next day I looked up to see when the open mics were. And like a week or two later, I went to the first open mic, but I didn't get on because I was too much of a pussy. Yeah. I was like, no. I was like, I'm not ready. And then I went back the next week and I signed up and I was like, fuck it, let's do it. So I did my first open mic. The second time I went to the club because I was too scared to do it the first time. And then after that, bro, I just hit the ground running and I just didn't look back.
Sounds like you need to stay high, bro. You keep making good keep making good decisions.
Hey man, shout out to the weed dealers back in the day. They had the little 10 sacks, man. Those motherfuckers were strong. But yeah, man. But that was it, bro. I had that moment in the booth, and it was a situation like this. I had my headphones on, the microphone right here, and I was like, man, fuck it. Why don't I give it a try? Yeah. So yeah, I went and did it, and never looked back, bro.
You remember any of your old flows?
Man, to be honest with you, I could not remember because I think that moment wasn't meant for me to remember, because the one thing I do remember is just being like in the moment and thinking in my head as like I'm talking, but I'm thinking at the same time something completely different. And I'm thinking in my head like, damn, I'm really up here telling jokes in front of these fucking people. And like, some of this stuff is working. Yeah. Like not everything was working, but I wasn't discouraged about it not working, because I think, there's something to be said about somebody who enjoys interacting with people. Already had a lot of experience with interaction, and many times in my life I had told a joke and nobody laughed. Yeah. So it didn't hurt me that much.
It's a bigger scale, but it's the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Many times I love chopping it up with folks. So there's been many things that I said that felt flat as fuck. You know what I mean? So for me to go up there on stage and half of my shit not being any good, it didn't really faze me. You know what I mean?
I think it takes balls though, dude, to get up in front of somebody and do that. I mean, that's just me personally. Like I said, I'm a big fan of comedy, and that just always seems like a crazy thing to do. I
mean, I will say this though, bro. Like, I don't know if sometimes I hear people say that. They'll be like, it takes balls. And I understand. I understand, because public speaking is not, that's something that people aren't really that into. Yeah. But I also think that you also got to be a little bit of like a glutton for punishment. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a part of you that kind of likes to not be, to not have everybody on board with you all the time. I mean, don't get me wrong. You definitely want people to laugh, right? So if they're laughing, they're agreeing with you. So you definitely want that. But to be honest with you, brother, there's also something very empowering about saying some shit and having everybody in the room being like, we don't agree. Yeah. There's something, but you're the one who's got the microphone. You're holding court, so to speak. There's something kind of gratifying about that, because I don't want everybody to agree with me all the time. Yeah. Because we can't. That seems insincere,
thicker skin to do what you do. Yes. You know that, okay, I didn't get what I needed, the reaction I wanted from this necessarily, but I'm still moving on. And then you pull the crowd back in. Right. That's an accomplishment.
It's exciting too. You know what I'm saying? It's like, damn, it's like when you had that one girl that she left you because you were a bum, but then you got your shit together and now she's on you. It's like, yeah, now what, bitch? Like, I thought you were fucking with me though. When I had the Ultima, it was all bad, huh?
So what was your first set? Where was that?
I was over at my first set ever, real set outside of open mics, was at Tommy T's. Okay. After a couple of months of doing open mics, they invited me to do, or not the club, but I think it was like a producer, an independent comic that was doing a show at Tommy T's and like producing it there. Mm-hmm. He asked me to come on, and they gave me like 10 minutes. And, the open mics are usually like 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. So I was like, I had to triple up my material, or the length of it at least. And there's some footage of it out there. My buddy recorded it on his flip phone and uploaded it a long time ago. Yeah. And it's me, like it's me wearing like this turquoise track jacket and some black jeans. It was my first set ever, and it was about 10 minutes, and I did pretty good. Really? I did pretty good, bro. And I just remember coming off stage and sitting down, and I just remember saying to myself, like, dude, like I'm gonna keep doing this. This is cool. Like I feel accomplished. You know what I mean? My thoughts worked.
If you didn't do well, do you think it would have swayed you the other way, or do you think you would have just said, "No, I do want to do this. I'm going to just keep working at it"?
Yeah, I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have gone the other way, man. And I can say that confidently now because now that I've been doing it for this is year 16, I want to say. Now that I've been doing it for this long, and I've done so many, you know, I've done a bunch of different rooms and everything from bar shows to banquet rooms at restaurants to fucking theaters to comedy clubs, all that shit, right? After doing it for this long, I can honestly say, bro, like this has been something that has uplifted my life. It's helped me out. It's helped me grow as a person. It's given me a place to talk about happy things. It's given me a place to talk about sad things.
Yeah.
You know, like I've shared. I think when you do stand up comedy, you do share a part of yourself, man, and it's like, it's very therapeutic. You know what I mean? So. Now, when I look back at that time, if I would have had a terrible beginning to doing comedy, to my comedy journey, I still think I would have stuck with it because I was looking for that place, you know, that space where I could talk to people. Because I'm not a scholar. Podcasting wasn't the thing back in the day. I was looking for a place where I could talk to a bunch of people and get these ideas out there and just see if it'll work. You know what I mean? Like I was always attracted to that, so I think I would have stuck with it.
All right, I got a tough question for you.
All right, go for it.
Who's your top 5 favorite comedians?
Top 5 favorite comics? Oof. That's a good question, man. It's like the Mount Rushmore plus one. All right. I gotta say, so the first ones that come to mind because the ones that really pulled me in, George Carlin, Bill Hicks. I learned to have a great appreciation for him. Patrice O'Neal, because I fuck with the philosophy that he has just on life in general. Another one would probably be Paul Rodriguez, because that's the first comedy album that I ever bought in my life.
Yeah.
And it was called Macaroni and Cheese.
Yeah.
And I bought it on the those 1 cent those 1 cent CDs they used to be able to buy. It was like, I forget what it was called. It was called like Publishers Clearinghouse or Washington House, or it was some shit where you could order shit through the mail, and they would send you CDs for like a penny. I bought the Paul Rodriguez CD and I bought Tevin Campbell I'm Ready album. I bought both of those, and Warren G Regulators. So first one ever. So that's the one where I was like, man, damn, people really do this. Like you really, like you go in front of people and you tell jokes and that's a life. You know, that's your life. So Paul Rodriguez, I throw them in there and these are just my personal favorites. I'm not saying that these are like the best ones ever.
Yeah,
right?
Everybody got their own opinion.
And then the 5th one, man, I would have to say anybody who's new out there that, Dave Chappelle, because to me, he's like the modern day version of what I think comics are striving to be to some extent. You know, you're striving to be somebody who has a thought and an idea and an opinion, and people want to hear it.
He's a storyteller.
Yeah.
Great at that.
And it's at the point now where people they just want to hear his opinions, even if he doesn't have a story behind it.
Yeah.
They want to hear his opinions. Like every now and then, bro, like in society, people come along where it's like you transcend what your job is, and people look at you as a thinker and as a mind. And I think that he's reached that spot. He's reached that point now where people just see him as a mind.
Yeah.
And they want to tap into that mind on certain subjects.
Yeah. So is there any, I know we talked about there's not really anything off limits. Do you find yourself talking about specific things in most of your sets, or do you lean towards like a certain, like your own personal experiences, or what kind of comedy do you prefer?
I mean, definitely like personal experiences. That's going to play a huge role in it. And it's going to, like, a lot of times, you know, it's going to many times it could dictate your demeanor on the stage. You know what I mean? Like this last Thursday I had a show at a brewery, and I didn't do any material. I just wanted to talk about, like, you know, breakups and having my truck was stolen, and, you know, like what I think about marriage, you know, and just like things that are going on in your life. They're going to affect your mood. And a lot of times your mood can affect your material. At least for me, it does, because I really do look at the stage as an opportunity. I'll be honest with you, man. Sometimes I go up there and I just want to get some shit off my chest, and I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I feel bad for the crowd because, you know, I kind of just turned it into a therapy session for myself. You know what I mean? And if it's funny, great. But sometimes it isn't funny, and it's like I don't even care. Like I just had to get that off my chest. I had to talk about that. And it might turn into a better bit later on down the line. But for the most part, though, it's like I do see it as a place where I could just express myself and get certain things off my chest, and I do feel better about it. Of course, you try to be funny about it. But no, whatever mood I'm in, that's gonna dictate the type of shit that I'm talking about. But now, do I have like set material? Yeah, I do got set material, and a lot of that material has to do with like men and women dynamics, what I think about marriage. I got some material on drugs.
Yeah.
I got some material on just like society and politics at large, or politics and society at large. A lot of observational stuff, right? But I guess all comedy in a lot of ways is observational.
Yeah.
Even
absolutely.
fucking the one-liners, you know what I mean? Like they're all observational.
You said something about that politics. Like, where do you stand as far as politics?
Well, politics in America is just have turned into a real shit show, and it's kind of hard to stand with either one. Well, first of all, the fact that I'm even talking about it as either one lets you know how like deeply conditioned we are, because you don't have to side with either one. Like there's a bunch of different ideals in America, but we've made it like conservative versus liberal, the left versus the right, red versus blue. They got us in a fucking kindergarten culture that I don't understand why people subscribe to this, but at the same time, I do understand why people subscribe to it, because it's super easy. Give you what do you like, Pepsi or Coke?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. And it's a fucking shame that American society has gotten to the point where they're choosing between red and blue. It's like two options. Ooh, and you can't go beyond that. And it's sad that we've been driven to that point, but we have been driven to that point. We've been conditioned to that point. So now, the only conversation in the American political arena is now the left versus the right. You're either Trump or you're Biden, or whatever two fucking people they put up there for us, and they make us choose between these two.
Yeah.
I think that's a fucking shame. It's a shame that we've allowed ourselves to get to the point where we just go between left and right.
Yeah.
And so it's a sad state of affairs, American politics. Now, do I think either one of them has a point? Yes. Do I think both of them are crooks and criminals in their own fashion? Absolutely. Because they're American politicians, and the very beginning of American politics, if you even want to play the fucking game, you got to get lobbyists. You got to get people to throw you money. And they're not throwing you money because they like you. They're throwing you money because you're going to do them a fucking favor when the time comes. And both sides, the two big dogs, the red and the blues, they participate in that type of behavior. Because that's the only way you can get into American politics. So that is a sad state that American politics is currently in right now. Is that it's bred and thrives off of money, and it shouldn't be like that.
Did you vote last election?
No, because I refuse to vote for. Here's my thing. Just in terms of what my political philosophy is.
Yeah.
I'll vote for any fucking side, red or blue. As long as the person that's running says one thing, I want to hear them say one thing. Because I'm really concerned in healing and fixing the people, like the entire population to the best of our abilities. I want to fix them, but it starts in one place. It starts with what the fuck are they doing with our money? Where's our money going?
Yeah.
So I don't vote for anybody until I hear them come out and make it like, don't just say it. I want to hear it be like, I want them to preach this shit and push this shit. I'm waiting for one person to come out and say, the first thing I'm going to do is audit the Federal Reserve. Where's our fucking money at? So I won't vote for either one, because if they're not talking about that right out the gate, because there's no bigger problem in America, in my opinion, no bigger problem than where the fuck is our money, man? What are you doing with all our money? I want to see it. I want some accountability. Until somebody comes out and says that, I'm not even listening.
And the fucked up thing about that is
they'll never do it.
Yeah, it's never
but that right there though, Gilbert, that's what I'm talking about. We understand that. We know that. And yet we allow them to completely not take that off the table. Like that's my thing, bro. Like any society that's in that position where the powers that be are telling you, oh, this isn't even on the table. And when both of them agree that one thing, they're such great enemies, right? The left and the right, right?
Yeah.
They're such great enemies. Oh, they're fucking, it's the Bloods and the Crips. You know what I'm saying? Like they're such great enemies, but yet they agree on that. When two enemies agree on something and they're telling you that they agree on it, that's what you got to look out for. That's the problem right there.
Yeah,
Why do you motherfuckers all of a sudden you agree on this? That doesn't seem suspicious. Like the American people and any society that's in that situation, they need to jump at that and be like, fuck everything else that you're talking about. I don't care about flags. I don't care about Israel. I don't care about BLM. I don't care about guns. I don't care about gay marriage. I don't care about none of that shit. Where's the fucking money?
Yeah.
Fix that first, and then I'll participate.
So with that being said, did you see anybody in the upcoming election, anybody that talked or spoke that you felt yourself leaning towards?
Well, the only person that I heard utter those words were Vivek Ramaswamy. He was the only one that I heard utter or even address this idea of auditing the Fed. So my and plus he's young and you could tell he's a real smart guy. I gravitated towards him. Gavin Newsom, you know, it's hard to side with him because as a Californian, like you just see so many problems in the state. So it's kind of hard for me to free my mind of all the problems that the state is already having and then look at him and be like, yeah, he should run the country, you know? It's tough. But at the same time, though, like I know that these individuals, they don't work alone. They got to work with teams and they've already paid their way to play anyways. So whoever they're working with is going to come in crooked as fuck, whether they're with the Reds or with the Blues. They're going to come in with already an agenda that the American people did not vote for. Yeah. And that's a problem for me. But yes, if I had to point one person out, I would point out Vivek because he at least acknowledged this idea of auditing the Fed. But he
dropped out, right?
He dropped out, yeah. Well, he ain't got the money to play.
Yeah.
He ain't got the money to play. They got their money somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So, but he'll probably be back around. Like the way the American politics works, like it's all about being out there and like and saying saying stuff that's going to sound really good in a sound bite. Yeah. And he's got a lot of great sound bites.
No,
he's a good orator, so he's got a lot of good sound bites.
He definitely stood out to me.
But so you see what I'm saying when I say like, you know, he had some conviction. He was selling it. He was committed to the bit. Yeah. You know, but the only other person that I feel that has been a viable candidate was, and this was at the last election, was Andrew Yang, who's on the other side of this so-called aisle. I thought he had great ideas in terms of universal basic income. Mm-hmm. I thought the philosophy behind it was well thought out, especially now that we're moving towards artificial intelligence and we all will be slaves to artificial intelligence soon enough. And a lot of people are going to lose work, at least in this transition phase, you know. A lot of people will lose work while they're trying to adapt because not everybody's going to adapt, you know. Yeah. And he had these great ideas on UBI and how it could help ease the transition phase of a place that we're headed to, no matter what, which is artificial intelligence. Yeah. So and he also had like a lot of intention when he would talk to both sides, and he would be like, "Look, I'm only running as a Democrat because I'm not going to get any attention if I don't run with one of your two clubs. If I'm not part of one of your two clubs, then I'm not going to be on the national scene." So he had to choose Democrat, or he chose Democrat. So yeah, I thought he had some really good ideas, and he was again a younger guy, forward thinker, you know, actually trying to bring people to the table instead of saying, no, we don't do it this way, and if you do it that other way, then you're not with us. There's too much of that in American politics. Yeah. You need somebody to come in and actually, what we need a young person to pop up and be like, what's up, y'all? I'm 36, you know, I'm a modern dude, and I'm here to tell all the old people, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to young people. Young people, ask your parents if both of these parties haven't fucked them over throughout the years. And one way or another, they've sold the American people short. Let's start our own party. That's my biggest hope in America is a third party. And
most of the people that are so pro either or, they won't even admit that they got fucked.
Dude, you know? that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But see, that's the thing though, Gilbert. When you can get a group of people, a society, to be pitted against one another, they will never question why they're pitted against one another. Meanwhile, in the background, sinister, dark things are happening, and we don't even fucking turn to them. We just look at each other like, huh, you, me? No, fuck that, you. No, fuck that, you. And meanwhile, shit is being ran at the very top And they're looking down at the two segments of society pitted against one another and laughing.
Yeah.
Laughing all the way.
Meanwhile, we're paying $5.50 for gas.
Come on, dog.
And $10 for a fucking gallon of milk. You know,
bro. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying though, man. Like,
winning.
show me where the money's at, man. Let's figure that out. After we get our fucking our books in order, then we can move forward. But until then, bro, like,
yeah,
it's not sincere. It's not honest.
You know, something you just said about AI. I know it's not entirely AI, but we went to Taco Bell the other day.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, hey, I want that. Oh, no, you have to do it on the kiosk. And she went over, she was like, I don't know how to use this damn kiosk. She's trying to use, and they were like, oh, she's like, can you just take my order real quick? I want to, no, we don't do that anymore. We're going to do it. It's like, you're not paying me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like everything's moving over. And when we used to go there was 10 employees in there running around doing things. But now there's 3 and 10 kiosks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's crazy how things are just changing.
Yeah.
You know, with the technology.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the kiosks. I'm not a fan of, for multiple reasons. Number one, and people laugh at me when I say this, but I mean this shit, dog. Like, why are we getting rid of jobs like working at Taco Bell? That's a really good job for a young kid.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really good job for somebody who's trying to like, hey, I'm trying to make it. I need some extra money. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is I got another job, but I also work here at night. Why are we taking jobs out of people's hands on purpose? And the reason we're doing it is because it's good for the bottom line for a lot of companies. Any company, like, I can make more money if I have less humans. 100%. So I'm going to put this AI shit up in here. On top of that, so that's just bad for society, right? But on top of that, though, when I walk into Taco Bell or when I walk into Chili's or wherever the fuck I'm paying for the food, but I'm also paying for the overhead.
Yeah.
Right? The overhead is instilled into the price of this enchilada.
Yeah.
If you don't got no employees, I'm still paying the overhead price?
Yeah.
And I got to do the work? Mm-hmm. Fuck that. No, bro. Like, you ain't about, like, you want to make money off the fact that you don't have all these people? I mean, figure out another way to do it. Don't be charging me the same price for a fucking banana at self-checkout. I better get an employee discount. Like, I better get some, you got to break me off something too, because you're keeping all the overhead money and you ain't got no overhead. And I'm just supposed to be okay with that? I know it sounds petty, but it is.
No, I mean, you right now, you're old enough to know about this. Remember the $59, $79, $99 from Taco Bell?
Yep,
remember that
straight
shit?
up.
We went to Taco Bell, 3 of us, and it cost us almost $60.
That's crazy, dog.
Taco Bell.
And the quality of the food has gone worse. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Quality's down.
They just they just removed the tan bark and they put dog hair in that motherfucker now, bro. Like, that ain't no fucking secret meat. That's dog hair and cardboard.
It's horrible, man. It is horrible, though. I disagree. I think AI, like you said, is going to be running shit.
It will.
It already is. I mean, look at this. What is it? Chat GPT
right.
and everything. People are not even writing their own they're going to college, not even writing their own thesis or their own essays anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they have things to combat that and put it into a program. But then you put it into another program that takes away this program and it takes away that. And it's like, you'll never know.
Right.
You got somebody who's getting a bachelor's or a master's degree that didn't even write their own shit.
Didn't even write their own shit.
You know what I mean? So technically, they're just doing it because they're like, oh, I know I need to have this education in my wallet, basically. You know what I mean? And just so I can show it when I want to get a good job. But they don't have the education.
Right.
They really don't even have it.
Right.
They're getting all the answers from somewhere else. They're doing, you know what I mean? It's crazy. I think it's crazy, man.
And it's sad because all it's doing is contributing to the worst thing of it all, which is humans, you know, in the modern world deciding and being okay with the fact that we don't really need to think. That's the greatest if you believe in God, that's the biggest slap to God's face. Is that you're like, this beautiful mind that I have, I'm not even gonna use it. Fuck it. I don't need it. You know, and I fear like living in a world where like everything is done through artificial intelligence and everybody is super happy with it, you know? Like that movie WALL-E. Everybody always brings up WALL-E as an example. But dog, it's not that far from it won't be too long before you're gonna come home, your kid is gonna be sitting there with a fucking Oculus, drooling, holding a fucking juice box, and he or she is gonna be sitting there just being hella like completely consumed by this Oculus world, and they're gonna be more and more detached from the real world. They're gonna want to live in this artificial world.
Yeah,
bro. That's tragic. You want to talk about a tragedy? That's a tragedy towards humanity.
It's already messing up the youth. I think, everybody's on their phones. We go somewhere now, and I got a lot of nephews and nieces, and my kids are still young, and when they go out and play with all their friends and they get together, everybody's on their phone.
Yeah.
I don't remember doing that shit at all.
Right.
When I was a kid, we were out on our bikes or our skateboards or playing football, doing something, right? I mean, nobody had a phone.
Yeah.
So now it's just everybody's face is looking at that screen, and it takes away from the childhood experience.
It takes away from interacting with other human beings, man. I don't give a fuck what they say, Gilbert. They make it seem like societal detachment is a good thing. It's not. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It's like you're taking away, you're adding on to the deterioration of the human experience. How the fuck is that a good thing, man? Why? Because you could order your fucking sushi through an app, or because I don't need my phone anymore. I could just control everything on the internet. I could control it with my eyes with this Oculus. Dog, that's not something to be like to celebrate so thoroughly. Okay, I'm sure it's going to come in handy, but to want to make that the way that the entire world functions, it's sadness. It's just a straight nightmare in my opinion. I will never be for it. I'll never support it with that real fervor that you see some people, accept technology with.
Yeah.
It's just stripping us away of our own humanity, and I'll pass. I'm good. I'm gonna be that old man that's gonna be like, fuck Oculus.
It translates down where I notice it a lot is customer service.
Yeah.
Right. Customer service, like the younger people that are getting these jobs. I love to see younger people working. Right. They get those jobs and they're trying, like you brought up Chili's. Let's say you go to Chili's, and if it's a young person, the level of service that you receive from that kid is completely diminished compared to what you get from an older person who's still doing, that job. And in that, it's, hey, how you doing? Anything else I can get? The kids are like, what else do you want?
Right.
What do you need? Like,
and they think they're doing a good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, this is normal, right? I talked to them.
Where's my tip?
Straight up, bro. And you want to be like, oh, it's just because they're teenagers. But I don't think it's like that, man, because I see a lot of grown-ups. I see a lot of grown-ups who prefer social detachment. I see a lot of grown-ups who prefer isolation. And I'm like, dog, we came up at the same time, but the thing is that you've been seduced deeply by modern day technology, And to me it's really interesting to see like kids who are working in customer service and they do such a bad job at it. Sometimes, bro, I can't even get mad at them, because I'm like, this is the world that you've been brought up in. You can't wait to get away from everybody. That's your whole life has been, I don't want to look at a face. I want to look at a screen. That's been your entire life, so how can they combat it? My only hope is this. Earlier we were talking about when the pendulum swings too far in one way, and you got political correctness being the driving force behind all arguments as to why comedy needs to change and comedy needs to stop, and the people we're tired of hearing about this, which is all bullshit. But just like you have the pendulum going all the way too far on that one side, people will always swing back, and the more it bothers you, well, fuck it, we're gonna double down on it. We're gonna make it normal again. We're tired of hearing you guys talk about it too much on this side. We're gonna swing back this way. That's my only hope. That's my only hope for the future of humanity. Having some, you know what I wish? If there's any kids out there listening, let me tell you something. I hope kids start thinking this. Okay, your parents who love their Instagram and love their TikTok and love their fucking Twitter and YouTube, they are so lame. Yeah. Your parents are so fucking lame, because we've built that world for you. And I hope that you guys look at your parents as being fucking lamos and saying, you know what? I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to fucking go back to living a more, human life. I hope that some kids out there can muster up that courage to be like, I don't want to be like my parents, always on the phone, always on the internet. I hope that there's some fucking kids out there who see what direction the whole world is going in, and because of just human nature, they choose to go in the other direction. That's my hope. Yeah. That's my hope. I'm hoping that one day we look lame as fuck to teenagers. because we're always on the internet. And I hope that something in them, their natural human desire to want to be different, I hope that just makes them be like, fuck that, no internet. We're not doing that shit.
Most of history has showed us that the pendulum always has a backswing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the pendulum is going to swing one way hard, and then it's going to come back slowly, or sometimes it comes back just as hard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a perfect example, I mean, to get off topic, Oakland Police Department, right? This is one thing that I can think of. They changed that entire city. You can't even do police work there anymore,
Right.
so to speak, right? They were at one point, you arrest somebody, and then you had to do a survey with the person you arrested to see how you were treated when you were arrested.
5 stars.
Who's going to give you 5 stars, right? Think about that, right? Who's going to be like, oh, he was so awesome when he put me in handcuffs and took my freedom away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now they went from that to losing control of the city.
Right.
Now, what are they doing? They put 150 CHP officers in there to combat these sideshows and street racing and whatever, and it's not making a dent.
Yeah.
Like it's so far gone now. The lawlessness that's out there right now is so far gone that you can't bring it back.
Right.
But that's that pendulum trying to swing, but now there's something blocking it. It's just not working anymore.
Yeah.
So
and you know, cities like that, I mean, we've seen it many times. You know, at some point, something has to give. So whatever the political philosophy is in Oakland, which drives the laws and which drives the laws drive the behavior in a sense, right? Whatever's going on right now, something's got to give. The people who are in charge right now will either be pushed out or they'll give up and create a vacuum. And then somebody comes in with some completely radical ideas to whatever is currently going on, which is just the other side of the spectrum. They come in with some completely radical ideas, completely change everything, and then the pendulum swings back. Yeah. And that's just the nature of things. We just happen to be living in a time with the city of Oakland, for example, where it's completely swung to one side, where it's like it feels lawless. It feels like desperation, you know, but something will snap, and it might not be pretty, but it always snaps. Yeah. It always breaks, you know. It's just a matter of like whether we're going to be able to withstand the beginning phases of the swing back. Yeah. And you know, I hope it does for the better, because eventually, because it's got to get better at some point. It can't stay like that forever. It's impossible.
Yeah. So one thing that I can think of too is like race, right? Racism and stuff like that. It seems like it was obviously back in the day before our time, really, it was horrible, right? I mean, there's no taking away from that. And then we moved away from it. Nobody was really caring about that. You know, when we all stuck together, everybody kind of banded together no matter what. We were just trying to have a better life for everybody. And then it seems like it started to come back again, where now, and I'm sure you see it in comedy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably jokes where it's like, oh, well, that's a little off-putting because you're talking about a race or this or that. Have you seen any of that in your work? Yeah,
no, definitely, man. I mean, race, unfortunately for us, race is always going to be a topic in America for you know, multiple reasons. You know, there's obviously every society is going to experience racism if you have mixed cultures, right? Because these discriminations are human nature. Like, people are going to discriminate against one another. That's just going to happen. It just depends on what you're going to discriminate on. You know, it could be race, it could be fucking ethnicity, it could be hair color, it could be eye color. Like, you're always going to find something to discriminate and put into different classes the people in that society. You're always going to find a reason to do that. But racism, on top of all that, racism is also like, it's a great moneymaker. It's in America. You know, you can be a race peddler, whether you're for race, whether you're for racism or against racism. There's always ways to make money off of people's emotions.
Yeah, even if you don't give a shit, you're just peddling it, right?
Exactly.
To try to get some sort of benefit.
Exactly, and you see it in the two ends of the spectrum of our news, of our biggest news stations, and our biggest news like stances, or the two biggest like political stances that you see on the news, whether you're a Fox person or you're a CSNBC person or MSNBC. They're both doing the same exact thing. They're just doing it for the two different crowds. One crowd is doing it for the so-called left, and one group is doing it for the so-called right. And they're just pushing their issues of race The right is telling you that racism doesn't exist, and anybody who tells you that racism exists is a fucking idiot. And the left is telling you racism is everywhere, and anybody who tells you that racism is not everywhere is a fucking idiot.
Is a racist.
Or is a racist. You know what I mean? And so they're just perpetuating each other over and over again, and it's just like that. That's the type of shit you got to deal with just on an everyday level. Like people think in those terms in the left or the right. But and so in comedy, of course, these are societal issues, and comedy is not there to solve anything. Comedy is there to report on what they see. You understand what I'm saying? Yep. So you're not going to find the resolutions in comedy. Now, with that being said, you're also not going to find the problem starters in comedy. Because again, we're not the comedy of the world is not there to resolve, and it's not there to incite. It's there to report on what's been seen, on what's going on. And that's what people need to understand, So when you talk about race and shit in comedy, you're not inciting anything. You're not solving anything. You're not that powerful.
Yeah.
You're simply reporting on what's going on so you can bring some levity to the people that you're talking to, and hopefully the greater good, like levity to society in some way, shape, or form. That's what you're there for.
Yeah, like you said, art is interpretation, right?
Art is interpretation.
Your interpretation of what's going on in the world, and that's what you're doing as a comedian, right?
Yeah.
No, I agree. Is there, as far as that goes, what is your personal belief on that? Do you think that racism is a big problem, or do you think that it's something that's getting brought up too much?
Well, I mean, to answer your question directly, racism is always a problem. I mean, any time that you participate in racism, whether you're perpetuating it or you're experiencing it, it sucks. It fucking feels terrible. I mean, it's a shitty thing to do to somebody, and it's a shitty thing to feel. But if you're asking me whether I think racism is a huge issue in today's society, or if it's the leading issue in today's society, I wouldn't say that it's the leading issue. When it comes to the isms, I personally think that the leading issue is classism. Because you can tell that we're being like the country itself is going in two different directions. You're gonna have those who got it and those who ain't got it.
Yeah, and
that's becoming more and more evident every single day. And I believe that the way that the country is unfolding, that's going to come pretty quick. Like in my lifetime, I'm really going to see a huge divide between the haves and the have-nots. So to me, that's the leading issue. Now, does race play a role in that? Yeah, race definitely plays a role in that, because, you have disparity. You have disparity in the way that people are redlined. And what I mean by that is not literal redlining, even though it's got its roots in that. But I'm talking about just the stereotypes that we hold of one another. That's the redlining that we already have in our mind. Now, do I think that those who redline others, who discriminate in the mind, do I think that they can overcome that? Yes, I do. I also think that those who are subjected to that type of discrimination, I also think that they can overcome that too, because in a lot of ways, and most of that battle is here.
Yeah.
Does it manifest itself into the physical world? Yeah, you probably got some dudes that probably didn't give you that job because they don't want to have like, oh man, it's like the dude barely speaks English. Like, do we really need that in the office? Like, nah, man, give it to fucking Scott. All right, cool. I'm sure that happens. For sure that happens. Yeah. And so you have to contend with that. But most of the battle is here. Because this is where most of the redlining is happening in America. It's the way that we view each other. And if we were more willing to give each other a chance, then, we might be able to eradicate that. But to me, the leading cause is not racism in America. To me, the leading cause is classism. And classism is going to be the thing that we're going to suffer from the most in the very near future, because that divide between the haves and the have-nots is getting greater and greater. The disparity is getting greater and greater every single day. And I wish we had the same energy for classism that we have for racism. Yeah. But it's not a good idea to remind the people that you're standing over that you're deliberately creating a divide between you and them. That's bad for business. 100%. You know what's good for business? Racism. Yeah. Keep these motherfuckers fighting. Keep them fighting against each other. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That way they won't pay attention to what's really going on.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's extremely controversial that stands out is obviously the use of the N-word, right?
Right.
I mean, that's in rap and almost every song that you listen to
Right.
now has it, right? Everybody that I hung out with was either black, Hispanic. Everybody sang the songs, no problem. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
But now I feel like that word has been given so much weight. Were you saying that word as a kid when you were younger and
Nah,
singing songs?
I never. Well, singing the songs for sure. Yeah. I'm not changing the lyrics to the song. It's fucking. That's what Mac Dre said. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So, but no. When it comes to singing the songs, like, yeah, I was definitely rapping all the words to the song.
Yeah.
But also, you know, to your point about, you know, the usage of the word nigga. I mean, because we can't talk about the word without using the word. I get it. Like, that's the first thing we got to get past. You know, if we're speaking about language, if we're going to refer to language, we got to use the words that we're referring to. Otherwise, our whole position is fucked up. Like earlier when I was saying, I was like, if you're going to talk about something, lean into it. Otherwise, people aren't going to take you seriously, you know? So my whole philosophy is like, if we're going to talk about a word, then use the word. So the word nigga is obviously an extremely controversial word, but the problem with the problem in my mind with that word is that I can never, first of all, I will never side with the idea of censoring anybody to say anything. Never. I will never, that's something that I can never get on board with. But in terms of how controversial it's become over the last maybe 10 years, I attribute a lot of that to the fact that, you know, a lot of shit is online now. Like when me and you were growing up, you could rap that song in the car easily. It's not going to be a problem. But now you might get exposed for it. Yeah. You might end up on now. Sure. Now, did you mean anything bad by it when you were rapping and when you were 15 years old? No, you didn't. And probably the kids that rap it now, they don't mean anything bad by it either. But it's just that it's so easy to make everybody look like a villain in 2024, because all you got to do is upload the video, and all of a sudden that person who said that one word that's very triggering and that's understood that it's a no.
Yeah.
Now that person is a villain. You don't have to know anything about them.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask no questions. You just know that they said this word and it was caught on video, and now everybody can call them a villain comfortably. And then you also get patted on the back for siding with that, like siding with this idea that, like, whenever you're in any group and you agree with what the group is saying, they're patting you, you're going to get a pat on the back. Yeah. And everybody wants to feel like they're a part of something. But I digress though. That word is obviously like very, very controversial, because we've never really gotten past this idea that it's just a word, you know, and there's a lot of like negativity that's attached to that word, because it started off in a very negative place, but we're still carrying it with us. And we haven't really gotten to the point where we've become like sophisticated enough to even utter the word, to talk about it, so that we can talk about like where our stances are. You know, what do we really believe? Like, if somebody says that word and they're not black, are they really racist? Should black people even be saying that word to begin with? I mean, when I was a kid, I used to wonder that same thing. I used to be like, damn, that's a trip, man. Like, that's such a terrible word. And all my black homies say it all the time. I never said it because I never liked the word. Like, to me, the word was always so fucking ugly.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of the word, and with that being said, I think I'm not a fan of anybody using it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're white, Hispanic, Asian, or black. Yeah. I don't care who's using it. I just think it's not a good word.
I mean, and even when people say like, oh, but it's nigga, GGA, I'll be like, nah, bro, like, I'm not stupid. We all know that it came from nigger. We all know that. Right. I mean, nobody's sitting here pretending like I never bought this idea that they're two different words. They have a different connotation, but we all know that the GGA came from the GER. We all know that, you know? So for me, the word was always so ugly, and I was like, nah, bro, like, to me, it was like the worst thing that you can call a human being. And I'm like, why would I want to call my friends, especially my black friends, why would I want to say that to them? So I always bypassed it. Yeah. But when you're listening to a rap song, I mean, it's part of the song, you know what I'm saying? It's like saying the ABCs and skipping the letter T. Like, you're not gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna rap. You're gonna say sing the song how it is.
But you mentioned something though that stood out, was you said you were giving power to a word. You said at the end of the day, it is just a word, right? Yeah. And one person that I do, who I think is also a GOAT, is Dick Gregory, mm-hmm. right? I was listening to an interview that he did. He said, if I grab this orange juice right now, I'd throw it on you. Are you an orange now?
Huh? You don't have any problem with that word? Look, if I juiced the orange right now and threw it on you, if you stupid enough to believe you're orange, then you something wrong here. Just because somebody throw that on me. If I say, oh, you hoes in here, stand up, you get mad, you a hoe. I didn't call your name. It's a game.
You're creating this problem, right? You're not what people say to you.
Right.
No, it doesn't matter what anybody's opinion of you is. What matters is the opinion you have of yourself, right? So let's not, like you said, give anything enough power to affect how we respond.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because there's a lot of ways that somebody can address you in a hateful way, you know. But we've put the word nigga on this pedestal where it's like, okay, this is symbolic of all hate. It's symbolic of all all idealism. Like wherever you stand on this word, then we don't need to know anything else about you. And that's fucking lunacy, man. Like I will never subscribe to that type of thinking because you're shortchanging a human mind. I'm not going to just hear you say one word and then think that I can make an assessment about everything about you. That's fucking lunacy. That's craziness, and I don't give a fuck. I say that to my black friends. I say that to my white friends. That's my opinion on going crazy over one word. I would never make an assumption about somebody just based off them uttering one phrase. I got to hear more about it. If you want me to come to a conclusion to somebody, I need to hear more. Tell me what you think. You know, that's why I talk about it so openly, because I don't want anybody to mistake where I'm standing, because it's when you don't talk about it openly, that's when people mistake where you stand on it. And I will never side with censorship of any sort. I don't care what fucking word it is. I will never side with censorship because I don't ever want to dictate, or I don't ever want to compel language through law.
Yeah.
That I can never get on board with that. But culturally speaking, it's like, yeah, man, you should pay attention as to what's going on around you. And, you know, there's going to be, there's more than just, it's not just that word. There's a lot of words out there that you should be thoughtful of and make sure that you understand what they mean to people, so that you don't end up like becoming a nuisance or somebody that people don't want to be around, or somebody that, you're going to kill the vibe. You know what I mean? Like, we all know that. We all know that we should be thoughtful about what we say, because words do have some power. But even then, those that are affected by words should not feel so completely powerless to a word. You know, they do have the ability to make an impact. Yeah. But if somebody says some shit that you don't like, you can't allow that to bring you to your knees. You can't allow that to make you fucking, just lose it all, and everything, all rationale goes out the window because this one word was said. Nah, bro, I wouldn't advise that to anybody on anything.
Yeah, I heard somebody bring up a topic one time, and it was very interesting to me. It's going back to the whole racism thing, is they were like, a black person or a Hispanic person or whatever cannot be racist. What's your thought on that?
That's craziness too. What they're getting at is, like, first of all, a lot of those people, and I hear it in comedy all the time, they're like, no, I'm talking about real racism, like systemic racism, where you can't oppress somebody in a system. Bro, yes, you can be racist. You can discriminate over somebody because of their race. Everybody does it all the time. Everybody does it. It's like, that's human nature. We were talking about that earlier. Like, sometimes you're going to look at your boy and be like, oh, man, I don't know, man, this dude don't even speak English, Oh, no, don't bring him on, man. Don't. It's not going to be good. You're discriminating against that person. Yeah. Now, in that case, it might be a little bit different, because you're kind of saying we need somebody who speaks the language so we can communicate. But if that person were to be like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that person because he's Mexican, that's racism. Yeah. And it does happen, and all races do that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny because every race will, everybody I've noticed, like, from different backgrounds, when they're being, like, honest, a lot of them will be like, man, my family enter ethnicity here, they hella racist. Everybody said I hear Mexican people say, man, my family's hella racist. Well, yeah, because they fucking discriminate. They're going to discriminate. They're going to favor their people over somebody else most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time they will. So everybody participates in racism. But the difference is, though, that what they're referring to is the current structure in America, which is like, okay, yeah, like the way that America was built, it was built to be a white Christian nation. And the numbers indicate that it's still a white Christian nation. So the only racism we're familiar with is white Christian people creating a system that benefits them more than anybody else. And in a lot of ways, it is. In a lot of ways, it's racism. In many ways, it's racism that already happened. And in many ways, it's racism that's still happening today. But we refer to racism as only in that fashion, because that's the way that we know it here in America. But racism could be done in any other way, man. If it was Latinos that were in charge, like you go to Mexico, you know what I'm saying? Like the Mexicans are racist towards other Mexicans because of the color of their skin.
Yeah.
You hear that all the time, you know?
Yeah.
They're the white ones that don't like the darker ones. I mean, you're always going to find a reason to discriminate within a society. It's part of human nature, you know? So when people say like, oh, black and Mexican people can't be racist or Latinos can't be racist, I understand what they're trying to say, but they're not completing the thought.
Yeah.
Black and Mexican people can't be racist in America based off of the way that the structure currently is. But if tomorrow morning Latinos were to switch places with white people and be at the top of the power structure, oh, you better believe we're gonna be racist in this motherfucker too, man. we're gonna keep our power. Everybody is. Anybody who's in that spot is gonna want to keep their power.
So with that being said, what are your thoughts on the argument for reparations?
I think that reparations, it could go either way. I mean, first of all, you're talking about a huge amount of money that some people are proposing. And that's not reasonable to just take a huge chunk. You're talking about $1 trillion. Actually, to be honest with you, I've heard different numbers. Have you heard any numbers recently?
Yeah, I heard $1 trillion.
Okay. So it's not reasonable to remove $1 trillion from something that we're all supposed to participate in. I mean, that's basically like annexing yourself, you know, and I don't think that that's good for a society to just have one segment of people be like, hey, look, we want to annex ourselves financially. Give us this money. You know, that's going to be a huge blow to the economy as we know it. And we're all going to have to suffer from it. So I can't agree with that whatsoever. You know what I mean? Cause I'm Mexican. And if we're going to be blaming people from the past and having people from the past pay for the ancestors of those people today, well, I can make the argument of like, hey, I'm from Mexican descent. We didn't have nothing to do with this. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a bunch of people in America that can make that argument. Yeah. So it's not a practical request to just ask for $1 trillion. So I don't agree with that. I also do think that it would be in America's best interest to do something for Black Americans that are ancestors of slaves, because there's already been a precedent set. You know, there was reparations for people around the world. And even recently, there was reparations for the 140,000 Japanese American people that were held as prisoners in their own fucking country, which is that's so heartbreaking when you think about that. And that was only like 80 years ago, during World War II.
What's going on right now in North Korea?
Exactly, right? Exactly. So that behavior just goes to show like that behavior transcends time. But there's been precedent set for giving people reparations throughout the country, and America has partaken in that. And also, I don't think Black people ever got like that opportunity to have something official, like on the books, like, hey man, the American government fucked up. We did this, we did that. Here's the best that we can offer is like X amount of dollars. Here it is. I don't know if America's ever really done anything like that for Black people. So symbolically, it would be a good idea to like really like try to mend that fence with some gesture, because people appreciate gestures, with some gesture. And I don't think America's ever really tried that. Now, again, $1 trillion, nah, I'm good with, I'm not signing off on that. But I will say this though, if I was Black, I would be very weary of that though. And I'd be a little concerned, because the only thing that's going to happen, because America, no matter what race you are, all we really give a fuck about is money, because we worship money. We worship two things in America: celebrity and money. That's what we worship. Yeah. All Americans. If you're part of the American system, whether you go to the fucking richest school or the poorest school, whether you're Black or you're white, whether you're second generation or third generation Latino, we all suffer from the same disease. And that's the fact that we worship celebrity and money. That's what we worship. So I would be weary if I was a Black person in America. I'd be weary about myself and my kids and the way that society was gonna view us and our causes after reparations. Because the only thing, the one thing I could imagine happening like right off the bat is like, okay, so you're gonna get this money. Okay, here's your money. I don't want to hear a fucking thing ever again. Don't ever fucking complain to me about nothing, because that's how twisted we are. You know, we believe that money is the remedy to everything. So if I was a Black dude, I'd be like, damn man, like, all right, well, I'm getting this money, but now my causes and my future complaints and my future concerns, are they going to be treated, any better? Because now people are going to look at me and be like, all right, no, you got your money. You got your money.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear shit anymore. I'd be concerned if I was a black dude. I'd be like, damn, my kid's gonna have to grow up in this atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, and now my kid's gonna be subjected to stupid fucking idiots that worship celebrity and money, looking at my kid and being like, no, I don't want to hear that. We gave you your money. Shut the fuck up. I'd be concerned. You know, I wouldn't want that. You know, and that's something that the law can't control. That's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
You know, like the American culture would call for a large group of people to be like, hey, we don't want to hear your complaints no more. Even the people that were being reasonable at first. Because let's be honest, there's a huge segment of people already like that don't give a fuck about black people's complaints and black people's concerns. Yeah. But even the ones that were on the fence, they'd be like, all right, well, you took my money. You got some money now. I have to pay for those people's sins. I'm a Mexican dude or I'm a fucking Asian dude, and I had to pay for white people's sins. All right, you got my money. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear any. And that's a terrible feeling to have in the country. I wouldn't want to make it worse than what it already is, you know? So I just don't know if reparations are the best idea, you know, for the current times that we live in.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring up some of these sensitive topics, controversial, if you will, because they're at the forefront with you as being a comedian, right? Just as they are with me in my profession, right? Being a cop, we have a new thing that came out. It's called RIPA. When we stop a car, we have to now fill out a form that says, what did we perceive before we stopped that car? Mm-hmm. Did we perceive that that person was male or female or transgender? Did we perceive that that person was 20 years old, 60 years old, you know, depending on age? Did we perceive that they were white, black, Hispanic? How do you tell that? Yeah, it's impossible.
It's ridiculous.
But we have to fill this out now. This is a new standard for us to fill out. And I would imagine being in comedy, it kind of translates differently. It's obviously a different form of it, but it translates to you guys or to you. So for you, you mentioned that you like Dave Chappelle. Mm-hmm. Recently, he got a lot of flack over talking about LGBT and
the trans
community and all that stuff. So how do you navigate around that as a comedian?
I think, you know, a guy like Dave Chappelle, I mean, obviously he has so much notoriety and people are going to listen to what he has to say in its entirety. And that's a huge advantage to have in 2024 because society has decided as a whole that we only give a fuck about sound bites, which is going to be, you know, which is, again, it's just like a practice in stupidity to not want to hear somebody out. And you hear people arguing like that, like, well, no, that's what I heard them say this. It's like, yeah, but did you hear the rest of what the fuck they said? Did you hear what they said leading up to that little snippet, that little 10-second snippet? So he has the great advantage as a comedian and as a person with so much notoriety to have platforms where people are actually going to listen to everything that he's saying. And most reasonable people that I know that have listened to what the fuck he's saying, the thoughtful things that he's talking about when he's sharing his opinions on stuff, most people can't really find a reason to hate him. You know, they might disagree with him, but they hear how he's being thoughtful. And so it's tough to just turn on him and hate him. You know, you got to be really, I think, irrational or really unreasonable to just turn on him and hate him after listening to what he has to say and sharing his thoughts and really understanding like that he's not saying anything maliciously. He's just sharing an opinion and he's being honest, you know? So as far as me navigating through it, you know, I mean, there's a bunch of ways to navigate through it. You could just like not talk about it. Which is I think what most people do, you know what I mean? Like even if I'm in a certain room and I'm like, oh man, like sometimes comedy clubs will be like, you know, we don't, or comedy producers also, they'll say, you know, I run a show where, we don't talk about bigotry in any way, shape or form. And I'm like, I don't want to do your show then, you know, because I don't know what your parameters are. Yeah. And it's like a lot of this shit is subjective and it's open for interpretation. So I don't want to be banned off your show, or I don't want to get kicked off your show, or feel like I'm being limited because I can't tell what the parameters of your mind are. It's all in your head, you know? Yeah. Or the other option is if you're going to make a joke, dog, again, it all comes to the same place. Like it better be funny and you better mean that shit and be coming from a sincere place of humor and not malice, you know? Yeah. So that's the best way to navigate it. If you're going to go for it and really be funny and really be sincere. Otherwise, I mean, good luck with the repercussions, you know? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to rewind you a little bit, man. Yeah. I'm going to go back to tragic. Okay. Okay. What was the tragedy that brought you into comedy? Oh, the tragedy that brought me into comedy is just fucking, I guess, being a rapper, I guess. I just got used to the microphone. I was like, fuck, man, I should just go up there and fuck rhyming. I should just say the shit. Well, I guess when I was a kid, man, I really wanted to like make people happy, you know? And I think maybe there's still a part of me that kind of feels like a people pleaser, you know, like I want to make people happy. I do kind of feel like there's, you know, I feel good about myself. Like, hey man, like I did I came with these ideas and people are laughing at them. And yeah, there's probably like a sense of validation in there. But in terms of like one big tragedy, I can't really say that that's anything happened to me that compelled me to do comedy. I mean, I've always been interested in people. I've always had a love for people. And that's really the thing that drove me into comedy is being able to like I said earlier, like share thoughts and experiences, and have some levity, you know, and some humor in it. Like that to me has always been the driving force. But, I can't really say that there's been any tragedies that moved me to comedy. Now, do I think though that you have to be open to like the sensibility? You have to be in touch with certain sensibilities in order to be funny. I think so, you know, because you got to know what things are serious and what things are not. That way you can kind of touch on them properly and make sure that, you know, you're using them for the ultimate goal, which is to make people laugh, you know? So I've always been in touch with that, but I can't say that it's because I had anything tragic happen to me. I mean, I've had tragedies that have happened in my life. And part of the reason why I even started the Tragic Podcast is because I had like a really terrible 2021, in terms of the health of my family, because I had 3 people die within like 6 months of each other. And it was a really terrible time for my family where we just felt like we were cursed for a minute, you know. It felt like a curse. Like everybody was we had all these people that were just dying on us within like 3 months of each other. And that was a real like trying and a trying time for me personally and also for my family. And we did feel like we were did we do something wrong? You know, because people keep leaving us. So that once that happened, I was like, you know what, this would be like a great topic for a podcast, because people do all have tragedies in their life and people all have things that they've gone through. And maybe if I gave them a platform to talk about it, you know, we could bring it back to like, you know, the humanity of it all. Yeah. And maybe we could even laugh about it, you know, when it's all said and done.
Nice. So one story that I heard on a podcast that you did, or a show that you did, was a story about you visiting Mexico with your father. Yeah. I kind of wanted to hear you talk about that again.
Yeah. So I got this story that, the story is really about, like the fact that I learned a lot through my dad, but it's funny because like, I think that many times, you know, you don't really learn about your dad until later on in life. You know, like I really didn't start appreciating my dad for like the man that he is, because I wasn't the man yet, you know, so it's tough. It's tough to, you know, game recognize game, right? But if you ain't got no game, then how you going to recognize the game, you know? So until I became a man, that's when I really started understanding like what my dad was going through and appreciating him. But one instance in my life where I got where I learned something right there on the spot from my dad, and I knew that I was learning something right there, was this story that I tell people whenever I'm talking about my dad, or like when something, you know, most recently it was about, I was doing a podcast about just, you know, having moments in your life that change your perspective. And one for me was, there was a time when I was about 12 years old, I went to Mexico with my pops, and there was a whole family vacation, and I was just being like a real asshole. I was being like a real dick that day. And I was just fed up. Like I wanted to come home. I wanted to like call it a wrap. I wanted to just be done with this vacation. And I remember me and my dad were walking through the town square, and we were just kind of doing our rounds, and he was saying hi to all his friends, and he was talking to people and stuff. And when we were on our way back home, this guy who was like clearly like he was begging for money. You know, he was asking people like, "Hey, can I have some money? I need this, I need that." Obviously, like clothes were all tattered, and he was just in bad shape. You could just tell that he'd been going through it. And so I just remember standing back. I remember being like 10, 15, like 10 yards back. I wasn't really trying to be close to the situation. Like I knew that my dad was trying to like talk to this man and maybe console him, or maybe probably even give him some money, because, when you go back home, like it's easy. You see your parents like want to help in any way that they can, because they're here making money and they're here living. And when they go back home, like people know like, oh, this guy's coming from California. Like, I wonder how he's doing, So that does kind of compel you and move you a little bit to want to help whenever you can. Right. But I wasn't really I wasn't prepared to see the type of help that my dad was willing to give, because when the guy came up to my dad, they were kind of talking to each other. And I just remember my dad was asking him, he was kind of like looking at his feet, and he was asking him, he was like, oh man, so you don't have any shoes, huh? And he's like, yeah. So you could tell that the dude was like in a real tough spot, So instead of giving him some money, what my dad did is he took his own sneakers off. He took his shoes off and he gave them to the guy that he was talking to. And I just remember seeing the guy who was like completely overcome with emotion. Wow. And in that moment, like I just felt so, this is why we say, man, like men, we learn best through shame. Like shame is like, it don't get me wrong, it can have a very negative effect on you and it might fuck you up for a long time. But also though, like when a dude realizes how stupid he fucking is and how dumb he looks, it's like the most impactful thing in the world, So in that moment, I felt so much shame. Yeah. I was so ashamed of myself for being such a fucking brat, for being just such an asshole for the last couple of days that we were on the trip.
Feeling ungrateful. And I'm looking at my dad and he's like not even fazed by my shitty behavior. He's still thinking about other people and he's trying to do something for someone else that he doesn't even know, like a complete stranger, Yeah. And I just remember seeing him hand over his sneakers, bro. And I was just so moved. And I was just so like taken aback in that moment, because it was almost like somebody was taking the covers off my eyes, and I thought I had seen the world, but I really hadn't. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw my dad doing that, it just made me, it put me on the path towards understanding what humility is. And I've been grateful of that ever since, because now, I try to remind myself of like what's important and what isn't. And when I'm doing that, I can't help but think about that moment, because my dad. How old were you?
I was like 12 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good life lesson.
Yeah, right? It really was a tremendous life lesson. And I think about that almost every single day, and sometimes there's been many times in the past where sometimes when I'm just telling that story, like sometimes it just moves me to tears, because, it was just such a lesson for me, that it was such a powerful lesson for me, that now like I keep it with me all the time. And I think about that almost every single day, because there's always an opportunity to remind yourself of humility. Like to me, that's the most beautiful thing in the world is real humility, like really understanding that, there are things that you can improve on. There are still things, you're not perfect. You're far from perfect. And there's so many opportunities and so many places where you could do better for the world and contribute to something greater than yourself. And as somebody, especially as somebody who's like, I'm 41 years old, I don't have any kids, I'm not married. Like I need to remember that a lot. You know what I mean? Like the world is more important than just me, because you get caught up in your own shit all the time. Like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. Oh man, I'm so happy I accomplished that. I'm so happy I accomplished this. You get caught up in your own life, and the world is bigger than you, man. And there's way more important shit than when you're going to be, your next show at what club, and when you're going to be performing and all this shit. There's way more important stuff in the world than that.
I would imagine at 12 years old, if that hits you as hard as it sounds like it did, that helps you navigate the rest of your life. Right? Absolutely.
What the number one thing I could tie it to is I was never, I've never been a materialistic person. Like I don't desire material stuff. You know what I mean? Like somebody just stole my truck and I'm like, oh man, all right, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find me a fucking cheap ass car. Like this is a perfect opportunity for me to be like, oh, I'm about to go get a new car and shit. It's like, I'm not really into that type of stuff. Material stuff doesn't move me. And I hope that I can maintain that for the rest of my life, because I just feel like people who aren't into material shit, they just seem happier. Yeah. I'm not saying you can't have material stuff and still be a good person. I'm just saying when it drives you, when that's the thing that you base everything off of, is how much shit you've attained, how many things you have.
Yeah, if it defines you, it's gonna consume you.
It's all bad, bro, and I don't want to be consumed like that, man. So I could totally tie that moment to the way that I view the world. Like, man, what's a pair of shoes to somebody who has nothing on their feet? Was me walking half a mile on a cobblestone road just to get back home, where I got a bunch of other shoes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, some of this shit that we put so much value on don't fucking matter, man.
Yeah.
And we make a mistake and we do ourselves a disservice by putting so much value on it.
100%. So I'm going to bring you back to comedy. If you were speaking to somebody thinking about doing comedy, what would be your word of advice to them?
The first thing I would tell them is, you better work on your nerve, man. Like, you got to go to places where you're going to fail, because you got to work on your nerve. And thinking about having thick skin is not the same as actually gaining thick skin.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see a little scared ass motherfucker on stage. Nobody wants to see somebody who's not sure of themselves, unless that's part of your bit.
Yeah.
But even then, that means you're still committing to the bit. You know what I mean? Like, you're really into it. But yeah, just work on your nerve, dog, because it's going to be a lot of failure. A lot. And if you are the type of person that's deterred by something because you don't get it right out the gate, you're probably not going to want to do comedy. Yeah. Because you're not. Some people do. Some people do get it right out the gate, But I would prepare for failure as opposed to preparing for like immediate success. If you get it, more power to you. But if you don't get it but you still want to pursue like this art form, then yeah, you're going to have to understand that failure is part of the process. And you could fail a lot when you're up there. You know what I'm saying? Like, every other joke might bomb. Yeah. And sometimes, bro, like, just like in life, man, like, sometimes people just don't like you. Yeah. They don't fucking like the way you look. They don't like your background. They already judged you before you got on stage. That's part of the deal, dog. Yeah. It's part of it, just like in life. Yeah. There's a bunch of people out there that are real pieces of shit. And guess what? They might be your neighbor. You got to deal with them. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to fold every single time you meet somebody who don't fucking like you? Good luck with life, dog. And forget comedy. Good luck with life.
16 years in comedy. You've been doing comedy. Yeah. I would imagine you've had more than a few bombs, right? To where they just failed. What was that like? What was that feeling like? Though, did it make you feel like, okay, that was the final one, or were you like, nah, man, I've done this before. I know how to get past this.
Yeah, man. No, there's not gonna be a final bomb, dog. Yeah. There's no final bomb. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna bomb many times in my life. It just depends on to what degree and how I respond to it. Some comics will consider a bomb like if they had one bad joke, they'll be like, oh yeah, I bombed. Yeah. And then some people will be like, no, it's got to be like a whole set that has to be bad. And then some people will be like, yeah, but you had like a 3-minute stretch where it was pretty dry. I mean, that like bombing is defined in different ways by different people. But I've just accepted the fact that like not everything I say is, it's not always going to be golden, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's why I feel like comedy has done so much for me just on a personal level, because it's helped me accept the fact that I'm gonna suck at things sometimes. I'm gonna suck sometimes. Yeah, Yeah. And that's just a really great lesson. That's something that you should always hang on to. So, bombing is gonna happen. If you meet a comic that say they've never bombed, they're either lying or they're fucking delusional. And they don't realize that people weren't laughing at what they were saying. It's gonna happen. It comes with the territory. It's just a matter of trying to like improve on that. Yeah. And trying to examine what can I do that's in my power. Mm-hmm. To not bomb again.
There's a good saying. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that translates to your line of work.
Absolutely.
Tremendously.
Now when I tell it, back in the day, if I told a joke and it didn't hit, you get like this pit in your stomach. It's kind of like when you lean in to kiss a girl and she backs away. You're like, oh, fuck. It hurts your soul, And now it's not exactly like that. Now it's kind of like, oh, okay. Well, that didn't work. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep on going. You address it. You try to make a joke out of it. And then if that doesn't work, you just move on to the next thing. As long as you're interesting, just stay interesting. That's the main thing. Even if you're not going to be funny, be interesting.
But you mentioned earlier too that it also depends on the group of people you're in front of, right? You could say something that bombs completely to one group of people, and then you go to another group of people, you say that exact thing, and it just blows up. Yeah. So you never really know.
Yeah, right? You never really know. But here's the thing, though. This is where a lot of people this is where our stereotypes of people start getting mixed up. It's not always because I'm a Mexican dude and it was a white crowd, or you're a white comic and it was a black crowd, or you're a black comic and it was an all Asian crowd. It's not always that, bruh. Like a lot of people really do believe like you know, the first thing we look at is race. Again, fucking, we love race in America. It's the first thing we fucking look at, right? So the first thing people will look at is race. And then they completely bypass the fact that, you know, if you've been to enough comedy shows, you start noticing something, man. Comedy is nothing more than just like a case study in human behavior. The crowd has a vibe. And if they're into it, they're all going to feed off of each other. And if they're not into it, they're all going to feed off of each other. It's not a coincidence that people say laughter is contagious, you know, but it goes both ways. If you're in a room with 100 people and you're the only person not laughing, you don't want to be the only motherfucker not laughing. Yeah. So you're most likely going to laugh. At the same time, if you're in a room with 100 people and you're the only person who is laughing, you also don't want to be the only person who is laughing, even if it is funny. So you might be more likely to shut up, you know?
There's plenty of studies on that too that show that's a thing.
Yeah. So I guess the only reason I'm bringing that up is because the first thing that comics do is they attribute it to race.
Yeah.
I hear that shit all the time. Oh, well, you know, they weren't really feeling my shit, you know, because I'm Mexican and it was an all white crowd. So like comics will talk like that, like, oh, it was all white people, or no, it was just like a black comedy night, you know. So I really, you know, I didn't really do a good job because they weren't really feeling. Like we always think of the race where it's like, nah, bro. Like also that crowd, those are individuals in the crowd. There might be a vibe in the room that you didn't catch the vibe, and you know they turned on you. You know, and they just weren't fucking with you. I mean, that happens too. You know what I mean? So, but I understand it's easier to attribute it to something as simple as ethnicity or race because that's just an easier solution for a lot of people. So that's why it happens so often like that.
Yeah. Nah, man, I think that everything that we talked about today is cool. I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of comedy in general, and just for you to kind of give me some of that, like behind the scenes stuff that comedians deal with was awesome.
Absolutely, man.
Do you have any shows or anything coming up where people can find you?
You got any idea when this is going to air? Because I got a show tonight, but I know you're not going to air it tonight. But I'll tell you, I mean, I'll give you some stuff because this is the end of February. In March, anybody who's going to be in Las Vegas, I'll be at EJ Fair March 2nd in Pittsburgh. I'll be at the Tropicana in Las Vegas at the Laugh Factory with